ArtSpark Texas and Pen to Paper Creative Writing Contest present The Lion and Pirate, an inclusive virtual open mic for writers, performers, and musicians.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd, for the introduction. And so, Laura, am I good to go to tell my story?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay, so like Ms. Boyd said, I love to write poetry, but this story is going to be like my prelude to my poems. So I'm going to read you the beginning part of it, and it's going to be titled Path to the Life of Brittany Sessom. I wonder if both of my parents considered their actions when they conceived me. As a 21-year-old woman, my mother studied to become a nurse and wanted to secure a life for herself with financial stability. My mother took the most necessary precautions to prolong my arrival into the world. Beloved, my mother was taken to the doctor with my grandmother to get birth control, instructed on the most upright procedures by the doctors, in which my mother quickly embodied and took action. My father, on the other hand, was pleased about birth control. As a businessman in the legal pharmaceutical business, he experienced an opulent lifestyle. My father's mind was on other things in life and did not want to be held down by anything or anyone that would take him off the fast lane. His mere thoughts were on maximizing his capital. Birth control was just as important as brushing her teeth. She utilized the guidebook days in and out, but did not take any extra precautions of getting pregnant. Contraception disregarded, and the temptation of eating the fruit of lust increased. Birth control has a 99% success rate. Unfortunately, my mother remained in the category of 1% who became pregnant while on birth control. Dear readers, I must tell you, the events of my life are not in chronological order, but I do urge you to be patient with me as I tell you the thoughts that come to my mind. Like Lawrence Stern, my writing will not be bound by artificial writing structures. Also, there may be instances of grammatical errors present. Again, I apologize in advance, and please do not think ill of me. I wish I had been born in the 1950s instead of the time frame I was born. On the 28th day of March, 1986 is my introduction into the world. As premature as this date could be, nonetheless impacted my mother's adaptability skills. I do not even think that Achilles in all of his strength could measure up to her. This lioness will attack, defend, and provide for her very own cubs, just as I stated. Even Achilles in all of his glory, with both coins on his eyes, could ever measure up to such feat. I told you when I was born, but I did not tell you how I came into the world. My apologies. The fluid began to flow, which prompted my mother to be taken to Fort Bend Hospital. This hospital is no longer present, but an outdated guidebook will indicate this once prominent hospital is eradicated to nothing and replaced by a store called Lowe's. I'm very delighted to that store. In fact, I just bought 2 masks for my China trip to fight off the smog. Yes. So my mother began to have labor pains, which increased by the minute. After fighting the pains of a gladiator, she succumbed herself to getting an epidural. She nudges her body to the tip of the bed, exposing her back to the cold air. My mother began to quickly brace herself as she feels the needle penetrating her back. Moving is no longer an answer as she reflects upon the face of Christopher Reeve. Once heralded Superman is no longer invincible to the diabolical movement of freedom. She continues to hold her breath and does not release until the syringe is removed. A sigh of relief is seen in her countenance. My dear sir, I love poetry. I love to read poetry. I like to write poetry in my spare time. I'm particularly infatuated with Lord Alfred Tennyson. In my mind, my heart beats every time I dwell on the word poetry. In the mist beyond the trees, from the tip falls the green leaves. The mist ever present, I cannot see. I lost my way, but would you ever pity me? To everyone across the world, I ponder on the thoughts of how I perceive my life. We all must run our own race, even if it's not at everyone's pace. Speaking of running, I would like to delight you in a story about my grandmother. My grandmother is smart, loving, and kind. She can be seen walking briskly, hands moving from side to side. Visits from my grandmother are valuable treasures that King Solomon often possessed: wisdom. But on this particular day, I guess she too, like Solomon, did not use any discernment. My younger brother Tyrone received a broken cell phone from my mother. This cell phone had a long antenna attached to it. Nana, I want to show you something, Tyrone stated. Tyrone, keep that thing away from me. I do not want to see that rat, Nana shouted. Nana darted out of the house and down the steps as my brother quickly follows her. As she turns back and sees my brother still behind her, she quickly turns onto the street and begins to run. As soon as her steam engine begins to fire up, her foot catches a pothole and she slides as if she is on home base. Her hands bloodied and bruised, better yet, her ego. Yes, I said it, ego. After her plummeted fall, did she realize that the image she saw was not a rat's tail, but an antenna on a cell phone? Madam, I cannot express the humiliation she felt as weeks progressed. Her images infused with the family's recantation of the whole event brought laughter and tears to the eyes of all that heard it. My grandmother's face frowns up at the mention of that story, which is pure amusement to others. Thinking about animals brings my mind to the thoughts of my mother. Growing up, my grandmother had 5 cats. At this particular time, I was 16 years old when my mother had her first sinus infection. It was the worst. I mean, the absolute worst. She would bundle up in a fetal position as if she's Nicodemus trying to enter back into the womb. My mother had no other alternative but to start taking medicine. I must say, sir, that in the past, my mother is not tolerant to alcohol. Simply, a mere wine cooler would give her a buzz. So, as the medicine courses through her body, within a few hours, her eyes peered to the ceiling. She began to point up to the ceiling. There's a black paw coming out of the ceiling. Perplexed, the family inquires to see what's going on. As it turns out, there was no black cat with a paw peeping out the corner of a ceiling. It was just my mother's imagination. From henceday on, her dosage was decreased. I do so very much want to give you all of me, but I'm concerned about the 2 chapters concerning animal figures. I figure I will express in this chapter about another one. My dear beloved Justin, my dog of 5 years, loved to eat oranges. It was when I was 14 years old, I found out that I had a tumor in my pituitary gland and a protruding right eye. Both of these misfortunes decreased my physical activities and even prevented me from attending school. Every afternoon, I sit on the steps and inhale the fresh air, which is more precious now than the smog I've smelled for the past 3 weeks now. To the point, I shall be there in a minute. My dear beloved, I happened to give my dog one slice of the orange. This progressed quickly of the dog increasing his intake of oranges. I kept finding myself going back inside to go get another one. Justin would patiently sit until I have completely peeled the orange. But when it was time to start eating, Pinocchio wanted the first bite. I dwelled on all the hard work I performed and the orange peel residue under my fingernails. And at one gulp, Justin devours the orange. I solemnly promise to discuss no more about animals, but would like to get to the rest of my story. The doctor walks in quickly as the wind from his cloak glides to my mother's face. Dr. Goniak proceeds to tell my mother that they have to do a cesarean procedure. My mother is wheeled from the room to the hallway and to the delivery room. The cesarean or C-section commences. Then Dr. Goniak uses a knife to perform the procedure. Cuts with so much ease as if he is cutting bread. Dr. Goniak proceeds with much success until he hears a loud rupture. As strange as it may be, it seems that I'm the only one not happy with this type of procedure. My right cheek is scoured by the knife. The doctor was unaware that I was facing up. He apologized over and over again because his heart was a little heavy, but my mother assured him that no offense was taken. This scar can still be visibly seen on my face. I'm surely glad it is my face and not my heart. I say my heart because many things in life try to deter me from living a successful and fulfilling life. I look at my children and they are just like me. We are not of the same blood or kin, but we hold a common bond in life, a scar. In fact, my dear reader, my lovely little girls are adopted. Yes, I mean adopted. I love those precious girls with all my heart, and this coupled with a scar visible to the world is all we have and all that will ever be. To Tristram Shandy, hello and goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
We just did a thing last weekend to launch his new book, and he agreed to come and do this with us this weekend as well. He was a member of the Actual Lives troupe, and plus loads of other things. Can you please welcome Gene Rogers?
All right, folks, I just published a book called Awesome by Accident, and it's about my life after a spinal cord injury at age 17. It covers the time I was in rehab. There's a generous amount of time in the book devoted to my college years, as I think these were really the most formative years of my life. And it goes on to my professional and recreational activities. And if any of you were around here in 2003, I made an expedition to Mount Everest Base Camp with the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. So the big takeaway in the book is personal responsibility. No matter what has happened to us, a traumatic accident, a divorce, the loss of a loved one, loss of a job, whatever, we can find a way forward. It's up to us to make that way forward. In my case, it helps quite a bit to have some really good friends that help propel me into the future. So I'm very thankful for that. So have any of you read the book? Amy?
I've read the opening. This is Celia.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the start.
And I skimmed through it and read bits and pieces of it, but I never knew the story or accident. So that was very interesting to hear.
Mom is reading it right now, and she says she can't put it down.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'm hoping she'll share what she's done.
I hope so.
I read all of it.
Oh,
Some words twice.
Excellent, Lori. I was 17. It was the end of our junior year in high school. And some of us were at this park called Whip's Ledges. And sometime during our picnic, I wandered off by myself, eventually to the cliffs. And the next thing I know, it's 2 weeks later, and I'm in the hospital. And I didn't really, well, people were talking to me and I occasionally responded to them. I drifted in and out of consciousness. Is that the way you remember it, Lori? But anyway, about 2 weeks after that, it was as if I was waking up for the first time. I couldn't remember at all the first 2 weeks I was in the hospital. And I had to have people fill me in again on what happened. I eventually went to Highland View Rehab Center. It's an old hospital in Cleveland. And I was on a striker frame. It was, imagine a gurney where you've got metal tongs in your head with weights connected to them to keep your neck in traction. That's the way I was for 8 weeks. And every 2 hours, they would flip me from my back to my front and then back again. So I didn't develop pressure sores. And then gradually, I got the use of my shoulders back so I can do this. But that's about it. My family was very supportive, but the house we lived in was really beautiful. The woodwork in there was beautiful. The whole house was great. And I really didn't want my father to make it accessible because it would have involved tearing down a lot of this woodwork. But otherwise, I really couldn't move around in the house. I spent all my time in the living room because that's really the only place I could go. So I was real intent on getting out of there, going somewhere accessible. I ended up going to Kent State University, which is just outside of Cleveland. And while I was there, I met some wonderful people who just treated me like a person, never once questioned my disability. And we ended up doing some traveling together. At first, it was down to Florida for spring break. And later on, we traveled a lot in Mexico, then up to Canada, then down into Central America. We did so much driving, we ended up having serious auto accidents, one in Canada, once in the US, and once in Mexico. But we survived them all. And I really got hooked on traveling. I've traveled in 44 countries, and I've done a number of adventure sports, including skydiving, paragliding, snow skiing, sailing. I don't know if you call bungee jumping a sport, but at 210 feet, that was pretty fun. And of course, the expedition to Mount Everest. But through all of that, I learned it's not really the places that I went that stuck with me, but the people that I met and the person that I've become. So I would encourage everyone to try traveling. And in my case, I'm pretty sure I became a better person and stronger, more able to adapt to whatever environment or conditions we have here. I'm certainly much more appreciative of everything we have here in the States. Not only accessibility, but just the fact that we could drink some water from our kitchen and not have to walk 5 miles to get some water. As I've gone to a number of lesser developed countries and see how folks live, and yet so many of them are happy, seem to be happy anyway. I remember when we smashed my van, well, it rolled over several times in Mexico. The driver fell asleep at the wheel. The van rolled over several times. A couple of our folks went to the hospital and they recovered rather quickly. But the van was all a mess. It wasn't going anywhere. And the farmer tried to make us comfortable and allowed us to stay in his field. He didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak in Spanish, but we pretty much got the gist of what was going on. He decided that they would make dinner for us. So he got his daughter, who I'm guessing maybe was 10 years old, and she had a gourd and a machete, and she just went after this gourd with that machete, and it was like she was a ninja, just chopping that up so nice. They ended up cooking it for us, and he was real proud to present that food to us. So we all were standing around with a plate in our hands, and we started to eat it, and it was the most god-awful thing I ever ate. But the farmer was so gracious. I mean, he offered this to us, so we smiled and pretended like we enjoyed it. And as soon as we left, we all put our plates down. There was no way we were going to finish this. But we had to do something with it because, the farmer gave it to us and he expected us to eat it. So one of my friends, Bruce, said, let's give it to the hogs. So he collected all the gourd, all of it from everybody and fed it to the hogs. Well, we got up the following morning and the hogs hadn't touched it. All that food was where the hogs were. They hadn't touched it. I guess they knew how awful it was too. So it was pretty embarrassing, and I hope the farmer forgave us. But we've had a lot of adventure and a lot of fun. And the more I traveled, the more I experienced life. The bolder I became, I suppose. The more I learned, the more I demanded from life. And eventually, I settled down here in Austin, Texas. So I'm real happy to be with you folks today.
But do you have Ice Cream Angel handy?
I can remember it off the top of my head. I remember it as if it was yesterday. Okay. So about, let's say 30 years ago or so, at least 30 years ago, it was Easter, and I was with some friends down in Mexico. We were down in Juarez, and you can imagine, Mexico is predominantly a Catholic country. So on Easter, everyone is dressed in their Sunday best. They have all sorts of decorations out on the street. Vendors hawking everything from with different types of clothes to ice cream. So my friends and I wanted to go to Mass on Easter Sunday, but there was no ramp or elevator into the church. It was all steps. So I told my friends, well, why don't you go to church? Just leave me on the plaza. I was in my manual chair at the time. I said, just leave me on the plaza and I'll take in the scenery and you come get me when you're done. So they agreed. They wandered off and I stayed on the plaza. Well, I was sitting there enjoying listening to the mariachis and just enjoying everything on the square. When this little girl, I don't know, maybe 8 years old or so, came up to me. She was holding an ice cream cone and she extended her arm as if to give it to me. Well, I tried to show her using my best sign language that I can't use my hands. I couldn't accept the ice cream cone. So she said something to me in Spanish. And of course, at this time, I couldn't speak Spanish. I'm from Cleveland and I was studying science. And we were encouraged to study either German or Russian. And I wondered what were the chances this little girl spoke German. Probably not very well. So again, I tried to let her know I couldn't take the ice cream cone. So she held the ice cream cone up for me to take a lick on the ice cream cone, which I happily did. And then she took a lick. Then she extended her arm back to me. I took a lick. And we just shared that ice cream cone, didn't say a word. Just shared the ice cream cone till it was all done. And when it was done, she just disappeared back into the crowd. And I was just really touched by this act of compassion and generosity. She didn't know me at all, but here she was offering something that I'm sure she really enjoyed. And she offered to share it with me. And I bet I could sit on that plaza for another 1,000 years and that would never happen again. And I don't know if that little girl remembers it, but I know it's something I'll never forget. Now since that time, I've used the term ice cream angel to describe any person or event that is totally unexpected, that is just a really breath of fresh air, really inspiring. So whenever I was off on another trip, people would say, where are you going? And I would say, well, I'm off to see if I could find another ice cream angel. So that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
I'm very honored to be in this position this evening. Thank you so much. I'm going to play 3 songs tonight. These are all songs I wrote while I lived in Baltimore. You know how you have different periods of your life that are momentous and you always remember living in that place. Well, Baltimore is one of those places for me. So this first song is the story of a 50-year-old woman whose housemates were some 20-something skateboard guys. And the song is called Dust in the Light. And I ripped off the opening riff from the Rolling Stones, but they'll never know, so I don't think they'll care. Whoa. These boys don't cry, at least not when I'm looking. They come crashing through the kitchen every time I'm cooking. They occupy the chairs and the chocolate chips. The dishes on the table, take a 6-pack off the drink. Down in the cellar now, beating on the drum. All I really have against them is that they're having fun. Drive home through the tunnel in a parallel park. Fumble with the keys in the front door lock.
smoke from the skillet and the laughter and the noise knock me over like a wave. This ocean of boys, hang my coat in the closet and the keys on the hook. Breaks my heart to spend another night beating up. But it's no use hanging with the boys tonight. They look through me like a ghost and just dust in the light. No use hanging with the boys tonight. Dust in the light. Boys tonight. These boys need girls, it doesn't show. And I don't understand it cause they got it going on. They got the long eyelashes, nice strong legs, but these boys hang together like a bunch of grapes. Stampede out the front door like a pack of merry hounds, and the house gets quiet like the sun going down. The used car lot across the street from the bar has a rail, so they're riding under the stars. If you stamp one foot on the back of the deck, it dumps up like a fish on a hook. You sail through the air and land like a pro. It's their private rodeo. Every curve, every rail, every ledge, every wall. Whoever built this world did not create it. For these boys who see with a different eye. They look at everything as they drive by, wondering if they could possibly skate it. But it's no use hanging with the boys tonight. They look through me like a ghost and just dust in the light. No use hanging with the boys tonight. Dust in the light. Boys tonight. These boys don't cry, at least not when I'm looking. They come crashing through the kitchen every time I'm cooking. They occupy the chairs, spin chocolate chips, leave the dishes on the table, take the six-pack up and drink them down in the cellar now, beating on the drum. All I really have against them is the fact that they're young. All I really have against them is the fact that they're young. All I really have against them is the fact that they're young. I neglected to say to Jean, that was a very interesting presentation. I'm very glad to finally get to see you and hear you. So thank you. Okay, so this next tune is called A Difficult Day. Oh, and it mentions Kretschmer's jar. That's a kind of breakfast cereal. It's a wheat germ. It comes in a jar. That's how the song starts. So. I can't get the lid off the Kretschmer's jar, so I sit on the stoop and pretend to watch cars. The man that I love went off to see his mother with his other girlfriend in tow. It wouldn't hurt me so bad, but they got a discount flight together, and I didn't even know, and now I feel like a fool. What else is there to say? But since you're kind enough to ask, yes, I'm how much you might euphemistically call a difficult day. I can't figure nothing out. That's how they talk around here. And I'm just a weak-fisted Amazon. You can't get the lids off of jars. A woman living alone, in love with someone who phones. He doesn't bother to lie. Think I should bother to cry. I'd twist the Kretschmer's lid off if I could. I'd make a scene if it would do any good, because I feel like a fool. What else is there to say? But since you're kind enough to ask, yes, I'm I'm having what you might euphemistically call a difficult day. I always thought that muddy waters made too much of a fuss. Now I'm a white girl with a bona fide case of the blues on Butcher's Hill, waiting for the bus. I've never felt so bad, I've never been so low. I apologize, buddy. Now how was I to know that without trouble education comes slow? And you can tell Shulamith Firestone, she knows exactly where she can go. Because I feel like a fool, what else is there to say? But since you're kind enough to ask, yes, I'm having what you might euphemistically call a difficult day. I need my bowl of wheat germ, sunk in some 2% low fat. But it's a working class neighborhood. Can you relate to that? I ask these people for help. My ego's going to get hurt. All the men will think I'm heading them. I'll pick up a line. And all the women will just smirk. I'll have to peel the rainbow sticker off my car in disgrace and slink back into the house with the Kretzer starts all vacuum packed, and then I'll feel like a fool. What else is there to say? But since you're kind enough to ask, yes, I'm having what you might euphemistically call a difficult day. It's just a difficult day. I'm having what you might euphemistically call a difficult day.
Yay!
Thank you.
That was
Nice, Joanne, as always.
Yay, Joanne!
Thank you. Thank
Woo!
you so much.
Very nice.
All right. Well, let's have a few more selections from Meredith Gaines. Meredith, take it away.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. I got one other thing maybe to share besides the don't disavote something I worked on recently, and I know, like, I just want to say hi. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. This is my first virtual open mic, but I do miss the days at Malvern Books. But I like this too, and it reaches so many people. I'm glad Michael gets to attend in Corpus. He's in Corpus now, and Michael Tidmore. So anyway, this is something that is probably going to be really rough. So I don't, I consider myself somewhat of a songwriter. I enjoy it, but a lot of people collaborated on Don't Diss the Vote. I kind of had the idea, and I had the chorus and the first verse, and some people came together and did the rap in there, and it was a lot of fun kind of collaborating. But anyway, this is called Brighter Days, and like I said, I apologize if it's really rough, but here we go. The Let's try it and see. There's gonna be some brighter days. I know it's hard and you feel pain. You're stronger than you think. Day by day, come and walk with me. Oh, we'll never be the same. I know there's gonna be some brighter days. Sun is breaking through the clouds. Take 3. There's gonna be some brighter days. I know it's hard and you'll feel pain. You're stronger than you think. Day by day, come and walk with me. Oh, we'll never be the same. I know there's gonna be some brighter days. Sun's breaking through the clouds. Feels like your hand on my skin. Can we stay here for a while? Oh, I wanna feel again. I close my eyes and I recall the days I used to have it all. They say that trials make us stronger. They say hold on a little longer. There's gonna be some brighter days. I know it's hard and you feel pain. You're stronger than you think. Day by day, come and walk with me. Oh, we'll never be the same. I know there's gonna be some brighter days. Water still and gently flow. Carry me to you. Will you hold me for a while? Is it true? I close my eyes and I recall the days I used to have it all. They say that trials make us stronger. They say hold on a little longer. There's gonna be some brighter days. I know it's hard and you feel pain. You're stronger than you think. Day by day, come and walk with me. Oh, we'll never be the same. I know there's gonna be some brighter days. There's gonna be some brighter days. I know it's hard and you feel pain. You're stronger than you think. Day by day, come and walk with me. Oh, we'll never be the same. I know there's gonna be some brighter days.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Positive, positive, positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Our featured artist this month is Artspark Texas Artist of the Month, and I've seen their work at some of our fairs, and I'm really excited to hear some of their words. So please welcome Suiko.
Hello, everybody. My name is Suiko. I'm an artist and poet. Consider myself an artivist. I like doing a lot of social justice and community and cultural awareness, culture encompassing an array of different groups. And I have 2 poems for you today. I will first be reading volume 20, A Life of Summary and Poetry. I usually do this one really intense and all the feelings out there, but I'm gonna go a little slower than I usually do. So if you've heard this one before, I am changing it up just a little bit just to allow inclusivity for people to sign if they need to, or read along with it as I go through. Some trigger content warnings. There is talk of, and there's some hidden symbolism, so if you connect with it, you'll see it. Some self-harm, experiences with depression and anxiety, other mental health issues. So, volume 20, A Summary of Life in Poetry. If the last few years were a book, it'd be a final product. From endless drafts of chicken scratch, etched with anxious thoughts, pages soaked in depression, a decluttering of emotional roller coaster chapters, sectioned to fears that crept through the castle of my mind as the paper-thin walls came crumbling down, stories sprinkled through the pages of people loved and lost, drowned out by the hurricanes of doubt and isolation, bookmarking the paragraphs of life-saving moments, barely keeping me afloat in a cyclone of loneliness, turning a page of acknowledgement into a chapter of its own, a follow-up that honors the gratuitous moments where folks and concepts rebuilt the foundation of my strength, layered brick by brick. A chapter dedicated to the unwritten poems and silenced voices, promoting a sequel of grocery lists to be tossed upon the pile of burning Del Año Viejo being dragged through the streets of Veracruz, leaving blank pages for self-reflection, sticky noted with direction to my future self, a repurposed mantra for 2023. So that one was, just an ongoing reflection of what's been going on the past couple of years. And I know I'm not the only one who has felt those things. So I hope you were able to connect with it and find solidarity and know that you're not alone in any of those feelings that came through that poem. So this next one is called This City I Call Home. And it is about my experiences living here in Austin. And multiple people from various parts of the world who live in bigger cities have said that they connected with it as well. So this one also hits a lot of different identities, being a different able-bodied person, also, living in poverty or poverty-like experiences, some talk with indigeneity, identity as well. So this one also might be a bit heavy, so if you need to take a break and come back, then I encourage you to please do that. Okay, this city I call home. Waking up from a dream, bed in a room off Runberg Street, fan swirling, twirling around the Texas heat, Jump in the shower, forced to decide between iceberg cold or smoldering hot. No balance for cleansing my skin. Splashes on my back, feeling the grime mixed with the particles that ooze through the factory plants, sliding down my back. Patting down the excess waste, reminded of the clean Rio banks at the edge of our pueblito, where we bathed as babes. Sliding into the processed fabrics that clothe this fat, disabled two-spirit body. Scratching materials, rubbing at my soul. Longing for the smooth, natural textiles handmade by the cochis. Metal key in one hand, pulling at the rusted doorknob with the other. Checking the clash of processed minerals, keeping the pollution out. Deep breath of air. Fresh? Not like it was on indigenous land. Pure skies, where we ran through the untainted breeze. Soft green grass beneath our feet. Now walking to the bus stop, feet slapping across the paved sidewalk. Cane clacking along beside me. Passing through the barrio, norteñas blaring, reggaeton bumping, waiting for my mechanic horse. 3 dragons stop and go, leaving behind their puff of smoke, slowly seeping into the atmosphere, holding my breath, taking in the poison if I don't, but how long before I pass out? Finally, my chariot arrives, taking me cross-county, away from mi gente, into a land where they may look like me, but don't sound like me. I make it to the market without being oogled, harassed, or unconsentedly touched, slinking through those central market doors, gliding through the aisles, hoping not to be discovered, imposter shopping with the rich because my barrio mercado doesn't have the produce I need. Make my way to the register, plastic swiping away. Heart sinks at the numbers on the screen. Bank weeps, not understanding how half a basket could steal so much. My journey back, I keep those brown eyes pried open, heavy from the Texas sun, overheating this broken body I call home. Global warming saliently dripping down my back. The Rumberg dragon arrives, another puff of toxicity. Hopping on, it lurches forward. Runner zooms by, dog leash in hand. How they remind me of Chango and Puma. My pets, how I miss them. But city folks wouldn't allow their presence. Also knowing they couldn't flourish in this climate. How they wouldn't survive being caged with rotting in the air. Making it home, I settle in, too exhausted to jump in the kitchen. I order takeout. I flip on my TV before putting my curls to bed, jumping back into my dreams to walk in worlds from past living, simpler times, humbler places, away from the waking nightmares I now call home. And that was the end of that one. Thanks, y'all. Those are the 2 I am going to be sharing today. If there's time, I might share another, but these are the ones for today, and I'm excited to hear and listen to everybody else's amazing work. Thank you for having me.
Sponsored by ArtSpark Texas and the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. For more content, feel free to look at one of our suggested videos below. Or if you really love us, listen to our podcast, True Tales by Disability Advocates, which will be linked in the description. For more information, contact Boy at artsparktexas.org, artsparktx.org.